Officer Daniel Brooks had served in the K-9 unit of the city police for over a decade, but nothing shaped his life more than the bond he shared with his loyal German Shepherd partner, Titan. From drug busts to search and rescue missions, they had seen it all, together. Titan wasn't just a K-9 officer, he was family. A brave, fiercely intelligent dog with amber eyes that always seemed to know more than they let on. They had saved lives, captured fugitives, and once, Titan had even taken a bullet meant for Daniel. That day changed everything. Titan survived, but he was never the same. He walked slower. His once sharp reactions were dulled, and though he never stopped trying to work, Daniel saw the pain in every movement. With a heavy heart, Daniel made the decision to retire Titan early, taking him home not just as a partner, but as a son. They enjoyed peaceful days, walks by the lake, rides in the car, quiet evenings watching sunsets on the porch. But time, cruel and relentless, caught up. Titan's hind legs grew weak. The vet diagnosed it as degenerative myelopathy, a slow, irreversible disease. There was no cure. Daniel built a harness to help him walk. He carried Titan when he couldn't make it up the stairs. He brushed his coat and whispered stories from their patrol days, knowing the dog couldn't understand the words, but feeling he understood the emotion. Titan always looked back at him with those eyes, calm, loyal, knowing. Then came the day Titan didn't get up. His breathing was shallow, his eyes distant. Daniel lay beside him, holding him like he had done so many times when they'd wait in silence for a call over the radio. But this time, there was no call, just silence. "I got you, buddy. Just rest." Titan passed in his arms, with Daniel weeping into his fur, whispering, "Thank you for saving my life, every single day." At the funeral, the entire force showed up. Officers from neighboring towns, old partners, even civilians whose lives had been saved by Titan. Daniel placed Titan's badge on his small casket and saluted. Months passed, but the house felt hollow. Daniel kept Titan's collar on the nightstand, often falling asleep with it in his hand. Then one cold morning, a knock came at the door. It was a woman holding a small German Shepherd pup. "Sir," she said softly, "I'm from the rescue. We heard about Titan. This pup was found abandoned. He's scared of everyone, except when he heard your voice on the news clip." He stopped shaking. Daniel bent down. The puppy looked up at him with curious, uncertain eyes. And for a moment, just a moment, Daniel swore he saw something familiar in them. He smiled, a tear sliding down his cheek. "Hey there, partner. You ready for your first patrol?" Daniel named the pup Echo, a gentle nod to the voice of Titan that still echoed in his heart every day. Echo was different, smaller, less confident, afraid of loud noises and sudden movements. But Daniel had patience, and more importantly, love. He knew that Echo wasn't meant to replace Titan, but perhaps to help heal what Titan's loss had left behind. At first, Echo wouldn't even climb the stairs. He'd whimper at the sound of the vacuum. He refused to go near the garage where Titan's leash still hung. But Daniel was gentle. He didn't push. Every day, he sat beside Echo on the porch, letting him sniff Titan's old collar. Sometimes he'd tell stories about the time Titan chased down a thief through a muddy river, or when he stood guard beside a lost little girl until help arrived. Echo would listen, ears twitching, as if trying to understand. And over time, the fear began to fade. His tail wagged more often. He learned to fetch Daniel's keys like Titan once had. He'd curl up beside him during cold nights, resting his head on the very same spot Titan once did. Then came the call. A neighbor's child had gone missing in the woods behind Daniel's home. Panic swept through the community. The search teams were forming, but Daniel, without thinking, grabbed Echo's leash. "Let's go, boy. Let's see if you remember what courage feels like." It was unplanned, unrehearsed, but Echo's instincts kicked in. His nose went to the ground, and he led Daniel through thickets and mud. Hours passed. Dusk fell. Then, from a distance, Echo barked, sharp and insistent. They found the little boy huddled beneath a fallen tree, shivering, scratched, but alive. The news made headlines: "Retired officer and rescue pup save local child." That night, back home, Daniel sat on the porch, Echo at his feet. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "You'd be proud, Titan. He's one of us now." From that moment on, Echo wasn't just a rescue pup. He was a legacy, a symbol that love, courage, and loyalty don't end with loss. They are passed on, paw print by paw print, through hearts that refuse to forget. And every time Echo barks into the wind, Daniel smiles, because somewhere he knows Titan hears it. Life gradually settled into a new rhythm for Daniel and Echo, but it was clear something extraordinary had begun. Echo, once timid and scarred, began showing uncanny intuition, sensing when someone in the neighborhood was in distress, alerting Daniel before anyone even knew there was trouble. One afternoon, Echo barked insistently at the fence until Daniel followed him to discover an elderly neighbor who had collapsed in her garden, suffering a stroke. Thanks to Echo's alert, she received help just in time. Word of Echo's heroism spread. People began stopping by the house, not just to thank Daniel, but to see the dog who seemed touched by something greater. Children brought him treats. Veterans from Daniel's precinct would kneel beside Echo, whispering stories of their own lost K9 partners, finding unexpected comfort in his soulful eyes. But there was still one thing Daniel hadn't done. He hadn't taken Echo to Titan's grave. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Daniel finally drove them to the small field outside town, where a lone oak tree shaded a simple stone marked with Titan's name. As they approached, Daniel's hands trembled slightly. He wasn't sure how Echo would react, but what happened next stunned him. Echo, who had never been there before, walked directly to the grave without being led. He sniffed once, sat down, and let out a long, low whine, as if he understood. Then he lay down beside the stone, resting his head gently on the earth. Daniel knelt beside him, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. "You feel it, don't you?" he whispered. "He's part of you too." In that sacred moment, man and dog, past and present, grief and healing, all met beneath the old oak tree. Daniel stayed there for hours with Echo, telling Titan about their life, about how Echo was growing braver every day, about how the love they once shared now lived on in another heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Echo lifted his head and barked once, loud and proud, just as Titan used to. A breeze swept through the grass, rustling the leaves gently, like a whispered blessing. That night, back at home, Daniel framed a photo of Titan beside a new one of Echo with the rescued child. Beneath it, he carved one simple line: different paws, same heart. And so, the legacy lived on, not just of a heroic German shepherd, but of the invisible bond between all who serve, protect, and love with everything they have. Over the months, Echo's role in the community deepened. Daniel noticed that wherever they went, people seemed drawn to the dog, not just because of his bravery or his growing fame, but because of something gentler, almost sacred. Children with anxiety would calm the moment Echo sat beside them. Veterans with PTSD said they felt peace simply placing a hand on his fur. Echo had become more than a dog. He was a symbol of healing, of connection, and of second chances. One day, Daniel was invited to speak at a local school about service dogs and their bond with officers. He took Echo with him, unsure how the children would react. As he stood at the front of the classroom and told Titan's story, how a brave dog had saved lives, and how his spirit somehow lived on in Echo, Daniel noticed something unexpected. Echo slowly walked up to a boy sitting alone in the back of the room, his head down. The boy didn't move at first. Then Echo gently rested his head on the boy's lap. The teacher quietly pulled Daniel aside and whispered, "That's Jacob. He lost his dad in the line of duty last year. He hasn't spoken much since." Minutes later, Daniel watched with awe as Jacob wrapped his arms around Echo and whispered something into the dog's ear. Then he looked up and said aloud, for the first time in months, "He reminds me of our dog." The room went still. Tears welled in the eyes of the teacher. Daniel blinked hard to stay composed, and in that moment, he understood. Echo wasn't just carrying Titan's spirit. He was now carrying the pain, hope, and love of others too. He was a bridge, a gentle soul healing wounds that words never could. From then on, Echo and Daniel started visiting hospitals, homes for the elderly, schools and veterans centers. Each visit, Echo worked a quiet magic, listening, comforting, reminding people they weren't alone. Years passed, and Daniel, older now, his hair graying, often sat on his porch with Echo beside him, both watching the sunset in peaceful silence. The officer who once thought he couldn't go on without Titan had found purpose again, all because of a scarred German shepherd who refused to give up. And on that porch, framed by soft light and quiet memories, Daniel would sometimes whisper to Echo, "You saved me just like he did. You brought me back." And Echo, with eyes full of knowing, would rest his head on Daniel's knee, as if to say, "We saved each other."